Getter just got better. Here's your look at the new Threezero Shin Getter 1, the Threezero arranged design. The ROBO-DOU Shin Getter 1 Threezero arranged design collectible is a non-scale articulated figure approximately 23 centimeters tall with a remarkable die-cast main frame that provides 57 points of articulation. To evoke a refreshing new fascination, Threezero has redesigned its original form and added intricate mechanical details that are highlighted with the Threezero's renowned paint application techniques. The ROBO-DOU Shin Getter 1 figure is constructed of ABS, PVC, POM, and zinc alloy, and features a color scheme inspired by the appearance in the anime. Before we get this review underway, the first thing we're going to want to do, as we always do here on these reviews, is to calculate just how tall Shin Getter 1 is. By that, I'm going to take my trusty tape measure and put it not to his head, as his highest point seems to be his shoulders. So instead, I'm going to take the tape measure right there. I'd like to as well thank the folks over at Threezero who provided the sample of Shin Getter 1 that we could have a look at in this review. The figure stands 10.2 inches in height. Which calculated that over to centimeters, you're looking at the figure roughly being about 26 centimeters tall, about 25.9 to be exact. For those who have already been collecting Threezero's mechanical masterpieces, you may have then recognized the display stand I'm about to show you, as it's the same stand that we've gotten with earlier releases as well. Picking then the stand up, it's made of plastic with some rather nice intricate details across the base. And again, we've seen these stands before. Some assembly is required when you get it out of the box. Primarily, you have to take this adjustable neck piece, and it adjusts or plugs in place in two places. The larger of the two at the back, the smaller of the two at the front. And it just latches in, as you can see underneath here. If you ever do have to remove it, it helps to actually pinch towards the place and then just yank the neck out. Although I can't imagine why once you've done this, you will want to take this apart. The neck is adjustable, and apologies again for people that already have these types of stands, but for those new then to collecting Threezero, let me just show you how these work. You can adjust the neck in two different places. First of all, the angle in which this main piece sways forward or back. Right now, it's locked in place and has no plans of going anywhere. However, you can see the teeth on the side here. To free this up, you bring this lever up, like that. And then from there, it can travel on its merry little way until you get, of course, the angle that you want to have it. Let's just say we want to latch it there. From there, just bring the lever down like that, and then it's going to lock into place, and it's not going to go anywhere. The second place of adjustment is at the very top here. This section can retract, extend like this, and again, it locks into place. To unlock this, all you have to do is take this little lever piece and bring this down, and then that will allow it to lock into place. Just simply let it go, and it's going to lock into place as well. Now for the back of the figure, this is going to plug into the back of the figure's torso. It helps as well, I find, to take this off first. This doesn't simply just rotate. You'll see that there's teeth on the outside of the peg, and then there's teeth working on the inside. When you put this in, it only goes one way, and it locks in place. If you want to say adjust this, you literally have to pull it out, lift it up to where you want to have it, and then lock it in place from there. But we're going to go ahead and take the figure and spin it around so you can see the back of it. Located, and I draw everyone's attention to the lower torso here, you'll see this piece right here. Well, this piece right here kind of looks like a robot's face. Go ahead and just pull the sides off, and it helps actually if you grab it from the sides rather than, of course, trying to grab it from the top. And just wiggle this back and forth. It's a little harder the first couple of times that you do it. It becomes a little bit more easier. Just remove that. And then from there, you're going to take this part, making sure, of course, everything's locked in place. And for this, I'm just going to make sure I bring this straight forward. And what you're going to do is you're going to lock it right into, let me just show you what's happening here. I'm going to lock it right into there in a shape that's the same shape as really what we removed. And then once that's in place, once that's locked in place, you've got the Shin Getter on display. Granted, yes, it's a little underwhelming the way I've got it currently right now, but I assure you though, once we look at the rest of the accessories that come included with this rather impressive figure, you'll probably start coming up with ideas in your head of just exactly how you want to display the figure for yourself. Before we have a look at the figure's accessories, the first thing we'll have a look at is the instruction booklet that comes included with it. The instruction manual for the ROBO-DOU Shin 1 Threezero arranged design with some rather nice looking artwork here on the front. I really like the way they've done this with more of a black and white treatment rather than color. On the inside, it's a pretty straightforward booklet, a manual telling you exactly the limitations. Not that this figure really has much in the way of limitations, but it also shows you how to assemble the hands and also the weapons and the wings that we're going to be looking at in a second. It's pretty straightforward, and it does provide it in 2 different languages, so of course you'll be able to then read it, though again, I find the images are quite clear and easy to understand. Of course, an image there on the back. A precursor, if you will, perhaps, to when we will be looking at it with the wings intact, which is one of the accessories that come included with the figure. Now then, the figure comes included with some accessories, some rather impressive looking accessories. Why don't we start first with his weapons? Some assembly, I will tell you in advance, is required when you get these put together. Starting first, he comes included with the Getter Tomahawk. Now, granted, it's somewhat underwhelming because it doesn't have the handle yet. We're going to put that together in a second. But I certainly want to show you guys the detail work done to the tomahawk. Now, this is all molded here in plastic. It's not to say, though, that paint gets skipped on this. In fact, actually, when you see it up close and personal like this, I really love the scratching of silver paint that they've added to the surface of it. But like I said, this is plastic. The handle, on the other hand, seems to be metal. Not only is it heavy, but it's cold to the touch. You're going to take the very end of the tomahawk, and it's not so much a case where you screw it in. In fact, you just plug it in, but it does help a bit to twist it while you're putting it in place. Just like that. And then you've got yourself quite the long, in fact, when you put it next to, it towers him by another half his body. It's, like I said, quite the long-looking weapon. But it doesn't stop just there. He also comes included with the Getter Scythe. I prefer this one of the 2. Now, again, this is molded in plastic. Things you will want to be careful of, at least when it comes to the scythe, is these end little spiked pieces that stick out from the end of it. Because, again, that they're using plastic for this, these would be, I guess, would be more susceptible to breaking, so you just will be a little bit more careful with that. Got quite the long blade, again, all molded here in plastic, but still matching the same colors as the tomahawk that we just finished looking at. And similar to the tomahawk, you get yourself a long metal post that just, again, adjust to the very end. This one actually was a little bit easier to attach in place. And you got yourself 2 very long and equally heavy weapons that he can wield in his hand. Speaking of hands, as we certainly put these down for a second, currently socketed in his forearms are closed fists. Not really the best hands for the job. However, though, he does come included with a couple of gripping hands here as well. Now, when you are taking either one of the weapons, things you will want to be aware of is at the bottom end of it. Now, because you're looking at the hands the way that you are, you probably already see the fact that the thumb is molded right to the pointer finger. So right out the gate, there's no way that you're going to be able to pry that open. So what instead they've done is if you take the very end of the handle, you just remove it like this. Put that to the side. And of course, now that that obstruction's gone, you just take then the hand, feed the post, or I guess the main handle of it, and just feed it into the hand like this. Like that. And then from there, you're just going to twist it up. Once you get things started, it's not so bad. Just like that. Slide it all the way up and sort of have it sitting around the midway point like this. And then from there, you're just going to take the end spike and just stick that back onto the very end of it. One good thing is it assures that the figure is not going to have difficulty holding it, where you're going to have this falling out of his hand. Because that the way they've sculpted the pointer finger to the thumb like this, it means, like I said, you're going to get a nice secure grip when you're attaching it to the figure's arms. Speaking of arms, let's go ahead and take the existing hand and remove it from the arm. We're going to go ahead and just wiggle this off. While you're doing this, just be careful of these gauntlet blades that stick out from the sides of its arm. Now these, at least, are adjustable, so you can move them forward and back, but they are made of plastic, so you will want to be careful you don't clip these by mistake. Just tuck those back for the time being, so I'm going to take these and just fold them back like that, and then just sort of get your hand behind it, and then from there you can go ahead and reach around and pull the hand from the socket. One thing you will see as we've now removed the hand is that the ball peg is metal instead of plastic. We're going to go ahead and take the hand that's currently holding the tomahawk. And I find it actually is helpful to first have the hand attached to it, instead of you actually putting the hand on first and then trying to feed it through the handle. I find it so much easier doing it this way. Then from there, you're going to go ahead and just take the hand and wiggle it back onto that ball joint, just like that. It may involve a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force to get that in place. But then once you've done that, you've got yourself it with its, of course, mind you, we want to just bring this up a little bit so it can actually clear it. Just bring the handle up a little bit. There we go. And you can display it with one of its weapons. Now, this does cause the figure to be a little bit more forward heavy. It's not so much the issue when you got it attached to the display stand, but if you want to just freely stand it like this, having both the weapons, the scythe and the tomahawk in its hands may then cause the figure to teeter just a little bit. So I would recommend, even if you aren't planning to have it in a flight pose, which I would almost recommend that you do once we have a look at the wings, but if you want to just have it standing like this, it would be probably in your best interests still to attach it to the display stand, just to give it a little bit more stability once he's holding these. Seeing as we have been talking about hands for a little bit, why don't we look at the additional hands that come included with the figure. Though these aren't clearly a matching pair, you actually do get yourself a pair of closed fists, and you also get yourself a pair of grabbing or gripping hands for holding the weapons. You're probably then wondering where the other hands happen to be if you said pair. Well, the other hands are currently sitting in the sockets of its forearms. Right, popped one out and placed it, yeah. So you get two of those, two of each at least. He also comes with a pair of grabbing hands. That seems probably the best way to describe these. The way that they've angled the hands like this, it definitely looks like he should be holding on to something, or I guess he could be crossing his fingers like this as well. The paintwork, I must say, is quite good on the inside of the palms. Adding a dark wash really does go a long way, and I really like the coloring of red that they ended up using. I'll talk more about that when we look at the figure itself. Also, something I certainly want to bring to your attention is some additional silver that they've scratched the surface of it, and also added some nice panel lining. The panel lining isn't certainly solid. You can see it does break up a little bit when it goes across the top pad, I guess, of his hand. But it does add for the overall wear and tear look to these hands. Something one would consider, I'm sure, more of dynamic hands. He also comes with a pair of those as well. In a way, they kind of look like Iron Man's hands. Again, some really nice dark, rich coloring that they've added to them. And again, just flip them around so you can see the backside of them. That silver scratching, I will say, does go a long way with adding just to the wear and tear of those hands. I really do like the looks of these. The last of the accessories, and if you ask me, the star of the show, is the Getter Battle Wings. Now, I like the fact that you can leave these off if you want to, but I'd be more inclined, I think, to display the figure with them. They're making use of a translucent purple plastic, and they are actually overlapped as well. So when you're looking at the wing, let's flip it around this way so you can see. The top of the wing is attached to the bottom only by this peg right here. Let's see if we can, there we go, so you can get a closer look at that. You can also as well see the use of dark gunmetal gray that they framed to the top of the wing. Boy, does that ever look nice. And the additional scratching of silver does go a long way as well, just to add a little bit of wear and tear. I'm really probably going to say that a lot when we're looking at this figure. A lot of nice wear and tear paint work that they've applied to it. Now, there is some adjustability because, again, that's plugged in place, the top to the bottom. You can bring the wing outward if you want to have it in flight. Or if you want to fold it up, you can then fold it in this way as well. There seems to be a definitive stopping point. Past this point, it doesn't seem like you can push the wing any further down. And then past this point, it doesn't look like you can bring the wing any further out than this. Basically, just a rule of thumb is just follow the contour shape of it. Same as well, when you fold in the wing, you can see it sort of follows the same frame. Anyways, to take these and attach to the figure's torso, we're going to go ahead and take both of these. Go ahead and spin the figure around and locate it on the back. You've got peg holes. We're going to go ahead and take the first wing. It also helps as well to move the arms out of the way, I find, just so the blades don't get in the way of things. Now, when you are taking the plug, the peg here, resist the urge to put it in sideways. In fact, when you're looking at it, you're going to be wanting to put it in on an angle, straight down. Take the first peg and just wiggle it down into that socket, just like that. It may help, actually, as you're doing it, just to wiggle it as you're forcing it down into that hole. We can also do then the exact same thing on the wing that we weren't looking with. And again, we'll just, kind of hard to do this, we'll spin the figure around, avoiding, of course, the wing that we just finished putting in, and taking the secondary wing. Let's maybe put it in this way. There we go. Just move this arm out of the way, and then just from there, slide the wing just down. Again, when you're putting it, you want to be putting it on an angle, straight down, and just twisting it in place like this. There we go. Once that's in place, you've got pretty impressive looking wings to be looking at. Now, there's some additional articulation. We already looked at the fact that the wings do fold in and out, but when you're looking at this area here, not only can it rotate technically on the peg that we just put in place, but there is also a hinge joint right here. We can bring those wings back, again, on both sides. So there's a hinge joint right there, and then there's a secondary hinge joint. If we spin this around so you can see, there's probably a better way to see it. Right along here, you can take the wing and move it back and forth. Basically, it's going to rotate right here. So it rotates, and it also does have a hinge. Between the two, you can really get the wings in the perfect pose that you want when it comes to displaying the figure. I think for the purpose of displaying it, I would really, if I can get the space afforded for it, I would really like to be able to bring the wings outward like this. And of course, making use of that display stand that we looked at earlier. Bring the arms down. Again, when you're looking at it, it's a slightly smaller figure, but I mean, when you're looking at the fact with the wings fanned out like this, it really does occupy a lot of space. And that is in a good way too. It really looks impressive when you got the wings attached to the torso like this. Feeling it was probably a good idea, I took the time before moving forward the rest of this review to remove the wings off the back of the figure's body. I know they're too cool to leave off, but I thought they would just simply get in the way of things, especially when it came to the figure's articulation. Plus as well, if we're going to be really honing in and looking at the detail work that Threezero applied to this piece, well, those wings would block that. So for now, I've just taken the wings right off and removed the pegs. But rest assured, when it comes to displaying this figure, like I said, those wings are way too cool to leave off. Speaking of cool, how's this for a segue? The figure is comprised of both plastic and metal. Generally, the rule of thumb when it comes to trying to find metal on a figure is it's cool to the touch. You see where that segue was coming from. Where I feel is there metal on the figure, well, 3/4 of it I would say is probably plastic. At least it seems like the shoulders are metal, the joint areas on the forearms are metal, the mid-torso feels like it could be metal, and most definitely, being that the weight is all localized down below in the legs, I feel like these are also cool to the touch. The legs are also made of metal. The molding of the figure, classic-looking design as well as classic-looking colors if you like the original series. We'll start first with the head sculpt and then we'll work our way down from there. I can't really say there's anything I would have changed about the head sculpt. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Things you will, of course, want to be careful of is the V shape, the crest that's on the top of the head. This is more so dealing with the articulation on the figure, but you will want to be careful when it comes to moving the head back and forth that they are probably going to clip on the inside of the shoulders. You just want to be careful of that. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I just certainly want to spend some time talking about how good that head sculpt is. Not only is it a nice color of red that they've decided to go with, but again, one consistency that you'll see with the majority of this figure really is all this additional chipped away paint. You can see it there on the sides of his crest. Something else I really like that they've done for the head sculpt here, and you'll see more of it as we look at the torso, is also this teal translucent plastic. It's not in the eyes, no, you can see the eyes are sporting some pupils, but the areas right above it, the mouth, the chin, are all these additional teal pieces of plastic. Meaning that they have a translucency to them, it's almost in a way you can see the inside workings of the robot's head. While that may be a little harder to see, it's a lot easier to see when we're looking at the torso, for example, that again brings to the table that additional teal plastic. Because again, it's translucent, you can also see straight through and sort of the inner frame of what the robot would look like underneath all that. Those are nice little touches that I really like to see that they included with the figure. Classic again looking colors, the whites and the reds, sort of modernized, updated a bit, and added a little more realism. Even the areas of the white, for example, you can see get dry brushed some additional gray on top of it. So even the things that would be clean on this figure, at least clean colored, have some additional scuffing on that. I really like the way that they've done it. The teal, something that we already looked at for both the head and the torso, find reappearances also when we're looking at the forearms. There's a banding of that teal that runs across on either side of the gauntlets. There's also some additional teal around the skirting area, which does actually move up and down. We'll talk more about that in the figure's articulation end of things. And there's some additional teal that runs down not only the tops of the thighs, but also similar to its body than torso. It also uses a translucent teal plastic, where again you can see the inside workings of the leg. All this does also go quite well with the additional scuffing of paint that they've used, and it's everywhere really. I don't think there's a place really on this figure that gets overlooked when it comes to the paint. And again, I'll just quickly spin this around so you can see it. The white is a scuffed, dirtied up white, and then as for the red again has all the little scratched away, chipped away areas of paint, all effectively come together to give you a really nice looking robot. Looking at the articulation on Shin 1, we'll start first with his head. His head is actually on 2 ball joints. One at the top, what actually connects inside the head, and then he actually has a secondary one at the base of his neck. Collectively, these give you a good range of motion, because not only is the neck being able to move, but also in addition to that, it can still do all the same things that regular ball joints and heads would be able to give you. So like looking down, looking up, looking back, looking forward, and rotating technically all the way around. While you are doing this, you will want to be careful of hitting the sides of the shoulders. It isn't so much of an issue right now, but when you start moving the shoulders, you'll see how close quarters things really get. As for the shoulders, of course, seeing as we were just finished talking about that, the shoulders hinge in and out. Again, just be careful that you're not hitting the side of that. And when it comes to rotating the arms all the way around, I would probably advise rotating the head, just so it takes up a little less space when you are rotating the arms. You can see really how close quarters get. See, as we're rotating the arms all the way around, that's pretty close. Just be careful of that. But again, like you have arm articulation, fully rotates back and forth. When it comes to the arms, at least from the sides of the arms, I'm going to rotate the figure around so you can see it from the side here. You can take the arm and you can bring it forward. And one clever thing that they've done is they've attached the panel piece to the top of the shoulder. So while you rotate it, that panel sits then inside almost the socketed area of the shoulder. I think that's really clever the way that they've done that. So he has that. Then when we look at the elbows are double hinges. There's a hinge here, and then there's a hinge sort of here. It's hard to kind of see it right now. But the first hinge gives you that elbow bend. But then the secondary hinge joint, as you can see here right now, this white flap actually tucks inside the forearm. That's really smart the way they've done that. The hand, of course, also rotates all the way around because that's sitting on a ball peg itself. You can hinge that back and forth as well. And of course, we've already talked about this before. The gauntlet blades are also hingeable. So you can rotate those, or not rotate them. You can hinge them forward and back. And again, you can tuck them backwards as well. I think for the purpose of displaying them, I'd like to fan them outward like this, because I just think it looks a lot neater. Let's just move those back for the time being. Now, his upper torso is on a ball joint. Quite comfortably, you can move that all the way around. And then he also has a secondary ball joint, as you probably see right now, shifting back and forth on his lower torso. It's interesting the way that they've done the skirting on the legs. You can actually take the skirts and you can bring these, not necessarily up, but you're almost even bringing them out. I'm going to bring this one out and bring this one out. It just gives you a little bit more clearance when it comes to moving those legs outward like this, giving you almost a full splits with Shin Getter. You can then bring the legs forward and bring the legs back. He has not only just a single hinge, but really a double hinge on the knee. Again, some nice paintwork done on those legs. Whew, that's sharp. And also see, I want to also bring your attention to when we bent the knee, how it shows this kind of coiling on the inside of his leg. Again, this is all metal, but it really has some nice detailing on the interior of the leg, something you don't really even see until you start moving the legs. See, it almost sort of looks like it's shifting through here, sort of elevating its way up until, of course, the knee is able to bend. I find the only limitations to this figure comes to his legs, or specifically to his feet. The feet hinge forward and back, but it doesn't seem like they're able to hinge back and forth this way. I was surprised, actually, that there would be articulation here, which is what you normally would expect with a figure like this. But I was really actually surprised that there doesn't seem to be an ankle pivot, at least not one that I'm finding here. So you really can't rotate the feet back and forth. He does also at least have toe articulation, so that's a nice touch. I kind of wish that he would have actually had ankle pivot. Again, if he has it, it just must be super tight on this figure. I'm just unable to access it. Regarding, though, the figure's ankles and not having the ability to hinge this, checking back to the instructions, I knew there was a hinge joint in the ankles. It just involved, actually, on my part, just some additional force. More force than I thought I really needed, but eventually it did free up that ankle pivot, and the figure does, in fact, have it. It would have been really strange, I think, if Threezero had left that off. It's something always that the company considers doing when it comes to their figure build. So yes, in fact, the figure does have ankle articulation. It's nice to see that they did include that. The Threezero Getter Robot Shin Getter 1 is an incredible looking figure that I feel has to be displayed like this. Not that I'm going to tell you guys how to display your figures when you pick these up for yourself, but I almost feel in a way it's insulting if you would want to have this displayed in a straight standing museum pose with not the wings attached to the back of his torso. No, truly the way that you want to have this guy displayed, if you ask my personal opinion, is that you really want to have him in a flight mode with his big giant gargoyle wings fanned out, and why not, a big giant scythe in his hand. Unfortunately, though, you will have to make some sacrifices picking up a piece like this and having it displayed like this. You may have to then start prioritizing the things that are certainly sitting around where this space is going to be. Have to start deciding for yourself, well, I did sort of like that statue, but I mean, to free up space for a piece like this, I'm just going to have to put it away. I'm going to have to store it away in storage for the time being. And when you do have your friends over, because it has been a while since you probably have had company to your doorstep, when they start looking at your updated collection space, first of all, they're probably going to say, well, what did you do with all the statues that you had up? Oh, you freed up space for this guy. And then from there, they're probably going to ask you more about this character, what show it's from. And then from there, you're going to realize you've made smart choices in life with selecting the friends that you have. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at Threezero that provide the sample of Getter Robot Shin Getter 1 that we could have a look at in this review. Just an FYI, in case you're curious to pick this one up for yourself and you're now starting to have to think for yourself, what am I going to do with all these other statues that I've had on display all these years? You're going to have to free up some space. It's recommended you would free up some space. But in case you're curious, Getter Robot, the Shin Getter 1, is currently available for $149, about $150. I think for what you're getting in this piece and the fact that the majority of it, at least some of it, is metal and it's a nice, heavy, hefty piece, $150 is not bad at all of a price to be picking up the Shin Getter and adding it to your collection. Again, you're just going to have to make some tough sacrifices. If you guys are new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and you can also as well turn on the bell notification. That is, of course, if you haven't done so already. And make sure as well you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel, because there will in fact be more Threezero reviews lined up and coming your way. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.